Hello again and welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today I'm going to be playing with the Lakeside Memories quick card collection from PaperRoseStudio. Some of you may have seen that I got this in a haul video. I decided that I wanted to play with this one first because it'll be good for Father's Day coming up in September. So what I tend to do with these quick card collections is I challenge myself to try and do 12 cards out of 6 sheets. For those of you that are new to the quick cards collections by PaperRoseStudio, just so you know, you get 18 double-sided sheets that are 6 by 8 and there's 3 of each sheet. So what they also do is they give you an inspiration sheet and they show you 6 cards that you can make from the sheets, but I try and stretch it to do 12. So I have already made an example of each of the cards from the inspo sheet, and with the remainder of the paper I will make another option, my design, on camera with you today. So let's get started and we'll make some cards together. Okay, so the first card on the inspo sheet is showing this fish paper. And I have made one from the inspo sheets. So there's a suggested card, and you might be able to pick it up on the camera that I've also put on some clear crystal gems from Paper Rose Studios. I also, with all my cards, I mount the inside and I use a little bit of the scrap to go on the inside. Now, just so that you understand what I'm doing differently to what they do on the inspo sheet, they usually suggest that you cut this sheet in half and you use one part for the front, but you use the back side of it as the mount. So you use this whole sheet to make one card. So I don't tend to do that. I pull out a piece of coordinating cardstock, and you can see here I have used a dark green cardstock, and I then make another card out of the other half of the sheet. So that's how I managed to get 12 cards out of 6 sheets. So we'll leave that one there and let's make the other part. So the other half of this sheet, I've glued it down onto a dark green cardstock mount, and now I'm just going to glue that on the front. And I've pulled out of the die cuts this little tag, and I have mounted it onto some dark green cardstock that coordinates, and I've put an eyelet in it and a little bit of twine, and I've pulled out the Gone to the Lake little sentiment, and I've got one of the happy birthdays and a dragonfly. So let's stick those on. I'm going to glue the tag on first, and I'm just going to prop up the end of this sentiment because it's going to dip down a little bit. So I'm just using some of the scrap from the die cuts to pack that out, just so that it sits a little bit nicer. And then we'll stick our dragonfly on, and I'll pack up his wings on this side a little bit too. So there we go, there's our 2 cards from our fish page. And there's the one I've just made. Okay, so here's our next sheet that we're going to use. And this is the card from the inspo sheet. So we'll sit that there. The other half of the sheet, I'm going to use the back of it. So I'm going to use some scraps and just build a little fishing story and put some scraps from some of the other sheets on. And once again, I have used one of the tags and I've mounted it on some green cardstock and put a green bit of twine on it. And we're going to put that on there. And I've got Making Memories. And I stamped out a Happy Father's Day stamp. And that comes from PaperRoseStudio scribbled Mother's and Father's Day clear stamps. And the number is 258 28 if you're interested in getting that one. So yes, I stamped those out and just mounted them. And I have a few little offcuts of scrap paper that I've turned into little flags. And we've got a little dragonfly. So let's stick this down. Now I'm mounting this sheet to a tan coloured cardstock as the mount. And you can see that I have just stuck on those two scraps of paper to create a band. So we'll glue that down. Now I'm just going to position this. I'll show you up closer. You can see here that I have stacked these two, the banner and the tag. I've laid them over the top of each other, but I haven't aligned them perfectly. I've let them overhang a little bit. And then this one here that says Making Memories, it's got a notch cut out of it, and I'm going to just position that so that it's hugging that sun there. Now I've propped that up with a little bit of scrap, and I'm just going to tuck that around the sun. And then we'll put our dragonfly over that little bit there. All those tiny little bits of scrap that you think, oh, I'm never going to use that. They come in very handy when you're trying to stretch things. Okay, there's our two cards. So that one came from there. And this one came from the reverse of that. So that one came from there. So let's have a quick little look at that one. There it is. And I'm happy with how that turned out. This one I almost did last. And so I was getting very short of supplies and thought, oh, what am I going to come up with? Okay, so here's our next sheet. You can see it's the one that's got the sunset scene of the lake. And here's our suggested card from the inspo sheet. And with all of the ones that have got the circle on it, you can see that I have done an additional die cut. So I die cut out some white cardstock with just a circle die that I have in my stash. And I layer it up just so that the circle pops a little bit more. So that one is the one that is suggested, and it came from this side. So we'll leave it there. Then we have this one that I have pulled out. And I've prepped the inside of the card. You can see I used a little bit of scrap. So let's glue this down. I have a little piece of offcut that I'm going to glue across the belly band. Stick it onto the mount. So here you can see, here's the die cut out of the embossed die cuts circle, and I've just die cut out some white circles, and I'll glue that to that. And that just gives it a little bit more of a pop. Okay. We'll give that a little bit of a burnish just to get it to stick. And then we can put this on the front. And I have Rest and Relax. And I have a butterfly. Okay, so there's our first card out of this sheet, and here's our second one with the ducks on, and it says Rest and Relax. And it came out of that piece. They turned out lovely as well. Okay, now we have our butterfly sheet, and here's the suggested one out of the butterfly sheet, and you can see that I've also put some crystal gems on here as well. Mounted the die cut circle onto a die cut white circle. So that came out of there. Here's our leftover piece. You can see that I've cut it along the band. It was like this, and I've cut it along the band. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to mount it onto this very deep rust terracotta cardstock. So let's just glue that back together. I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape to stick it together. I'll align that back together so that I can use it. You can see that I've done the inside of the card. I was running very low on coordinating scraps by this stage, but it still looks lovely. And we'll put this on. Okay. Now what I've pulled out for this one is this tag here. I have mounted it onto some white cardstock. And once again, I put an eyelet in it and a little bit of twine. Because in this kit there were actually 3 or 4 tags or something like that. But this one here be perfect for journaling, but for a card front, it's not interesting to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this little piece of ephemera over the top of that, just so that it looks like it's got a white top and bottom. So let's do that. Okay, that looks better. And we're going to set that on there. I have once again stamped a Father's Day sentiment that's going to go down here. And I have our lovely dog, and he's looking at the ducks, waiting for his master to tell him to go and retrieve whatever needs to be retrieved. So he's going to go there. And we have a nice little dragonfly again and a little banner to go on there. We might cut that one down just a tad. So let's stick the tag on first. I'm going to just trim those tassels. Oh yes, he's a very cute retriever, isn't he? We have a golden Labrador. Some of you may have heard me talking about her before, but she is quite old, but she's so lovely. And she comes to my door. I have glass doors, double doors going out to the backyard from my craft room. And she comes to my back door every day to just check out what's going on. She knows that I'll be sitting at my desk. So she comes to see what's going on and to see whether she can come in and be with me. Okay, so there's our next card. So that's your suggested one. And then out of the remainder, I made this one. And he's very cute, that retriever. It makes him the focal point, doesn't it, this card? He's looking in at the ducks and he's thinking, they look like they're fun to play with and to chase. He's very cute. Before we go, I did have this little lovely Lake Days. I might slide that in there. I'm just going to do that because I had that sitting there to put on and I liked it just tucked under the edge of that tag. Yes, that looks good tucked in there. I've just tucked that lovely Lake Days in there. Okay, so here's our next sheet. And this is the suggested card. So let me show you that. And once again, I've put on some crystal gems and the inside has some scrap on it. So let's sit that there. Now this was the last card that I made and I was running very low with ephemera. I had hardly anything left. So this is what we ended up doing. You can see here that I've cut that out of the leftover. It's got polka dots on the other side. I have cut a portion off the bottom and flipped it over and put some double-sided tape on it. So we did that with one of the other cards. So that's not new. But let's put that down onto our deep terracotta cardstock mount. And I'm going to glue that to the front. Okay, so now we got to the very end of our ephemera and all I had left was some butterflies and I had a cabin sign and I had a great outdoors. So this is really all I had left. So I thought, what am I going to do with that? And this whole pack is quite masculine. So I thought it might be nice to have something that's a little bit more feminine in it. So what I did was I die cut out a circle and then I embossed it with some fern leaf. And I've die cut out one of the circles. I'm going to glue the embossed die cut to my circle die cut just to create a textured background. But because we're using the stripes on here, we don't want anything too colourful. We want the stripes to be the colour. And I'm just going to glue that on, put the butterflies around as if they're flying around the fern. And then we've got a little get well label here, sentiment, and I've just tied a little bow with some blue twine. So let's stick those down. So some of you may be interested in how I work out what I'm going to do to create my 6 cards with what's left. So what I do is I cut the sheet of paper for the suggested card first, and I lay it on the front of the card. I don't glue anything down, and then I do that on all of the 6 suggested cards. Then I look at what's left and I cut a face for my card. So I cut a sheet of paper for my card. And then I end up with lots of little strips of paper left. So once I get to that stage, then it's a case of going, okay, let's, position out all of the ephemera. So I lay out all of the ephemera that is allocated to the suggested cards first. I put those out because that's the whole point of the video that I'm doing. It's like using the kit and then seeing what else I can create from what's left in the kit. So once I've laid out all of the ephemera onto the suggested cards, so then I start playing and moving things around and shuffling. I've got to be honest, it can be a little bit tricky figuring out where I'm going to put things and how I'm going to make it work. But as you can see, it always works out. It does get to a stage where I'm running low and sometimes I've got to do something like I have with this one. I die cut out something to make it work. Okay, so there we go. There's our butterfly card with our die cuts. So really, without the circle die cuts, this card wouldn't have come together. I've had to do that out of my supplies. Most of us that make cards have got some circle dies that we can cut. They may not be exactly like mine, but most people that make cards regularly would have some circle dies that you could use. So there we go. That's how they turned out. Okay, we've got one more to do. So here we have our pebble page with our fish banner, and there's our suggested card. And once again, I have put on a few crystal gems onto it. So it came from here. And then the other portion I have cut from here, and as you can see, I have used the back of it as well. So I've cut through it and created a band. I've put the inside of the scrap on the inside of the card. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to do a horizontal card, and I've got a little bit of scrap left over. I'm going to put it along there. And here's one of those tickets, and I have mounted that onto some blue cardstock that coordinates with the cardstock that I used for the mount for this one. And I have a thinking of you banner. Glue that to the front of the card. And we're going to position that there. I just want to check that I've got my positions right. And our lake, this way to the lake. Okay, let's glue our sentiment on. It says thinking of you. Okay, there's our last card. And you can see that this one's quite light on. It's we're starting to run out of things, but it's still a lovely card. I'll put some crystal gems on that and that will look good. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put crystal gems onto all of the cards that I've just made. I'll clear the decks and I'll lay out all of the cards onto my desk, and then I'll come back to you so that we can look at them all together and chat about them, and then you can take a screenshot of what I've made, and if you want to make them you can. So I'll be back very soon. Okay, let's have a little sum up of what we've done. I've done 12 cards out of 6 sheets out of the Quick Cards collection, and I limit myself to 6 sheets. I don't cut a little slither off of another sheet or anything. I have 2 of each sheet left in the kit. I don't cut extras off. I limit myself to the 6 sheets, and I've got to make the 12 cards out of those 6 sheets. So what do I have left? Out of those 6 sheets, there's my scraps that are left, and there's 6 sentiments and 2 little pieces of ephemera left out of the embossed die cuts that come in the kit. You can see that's why I purchase an extra embossed die cuts when I buy a Quick Cards collection, because I like to stretch it and then have enough ephemera to make more. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the cards that I just made with you, and I've put the crystal gems onto them. So you can see here, I put some crystal gems here on that one. That's the fish. This one I made into a Father's Day card. And we've got a few crystal gems just around the place, up on the flag. We have this one, Rest and Relax. And I've put some around the ducks, our lovely golden retriever. And I've put a few crystal gems around on there as well. The butterflies, I've popped a couple around the butterflies. And here's our last one, the lake, thinking of you. And we've got a couple down here and another crystal gem up there. So there we go. If you'd like to take a screenshot, I'll just line them up for you. You're welcome to take a screenshot and use whatever you'd like in your kit. Okay, thank you very much for joining me today. Once again, it was a fun collection to play with. I love doing the Paper Rose Quick Cards collections, and I love challenging myself to try and make 12 cards out of 6 sheets. So if you liked the video today, give it a thumbs up. That would be fantastic, and subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all very soon for another Quick Cards collection or another project. So have a great time creating, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.